I'm hoping that you didn't do every single thing exactly the same way with the second podcast. So those things that you that where you pivoted and you did a different approach, how many episodes you recorded, who you interviewed, whatever it is, I would like you to share with our listener those things that you learned from the first podcast and are implementing with the second and now third podcast.
Oh yeah. Well, how much time do you have? I mean, no, I'll give you a few highlights. So I actually made an episode called 50 Mistakes I Made Producing My First 50 Episodes of Inside Out. So I made that on For the Love of Podcast. So a lot of mistakes. Some of them I haven't even corrected, but I'll give you a few of the basic ones. To me, the title is super important. You have to make sure that the title will do as good a job as possible, letting the audience, your potential listener, know what the show is about. So I think it was Cliff Ravenscraft said something to this effect: make your title boring and descriptive. So the social media marketing podcast, you know what that's about. Inside Out is a little bit vague. I don't know what it's about. It's about insights, but what about insights? So it's kind of abstract. I like it now, but there's been a time where I'm like, I don't know, blah, blah, blah. But to your point, it's grown. But it's a long-term, it's a long-term play. I had to see it grow over a long period of time. Maybe not that long, but like long enough. So I wanted the title was really important. The second thing, and this goes along with the title, is who is the listener? Defining who that is. I did not do that clearly with Inside Out. Is it a leader? Is it an entrepreneur? Is it a small business owner? Or, is it somebody in corporate? Who is the listener, right? And so that, to be honest, it's still fairly broad. It's somebody that wants to improve their lives. That's so broad. Versus a podcast about podcasts. My listener is podcasts. Specifically, though, within that, I would say beginner podcaster to intermediate podcasters, not as much for the advanced podcaster. That's who my show serves. So first thing, title. Second thing, who you serve. The third thing, and I'm still working on this, and I think this is probably with any podcaster, is how much of your time is spent, and for me, how much of my time was spent creating versus promoting. I think most people spend 80% of their time creating and 20% of their time promoting and marketing. I think that should be inversed if you care about the show getting the kind of traction you want. Now, this is not like hard and fast. There's all sorts of situations. Some shows, all they do is work on the content and it blows up. Other shows, if they don't spend time on the marketing, literally they might have 10, 15, 20, 50 downloads, 100 downloads, very small numbers. And so I believe that marketing plays a critical role in the success of a podcast, because otherwise it's just like throwing a podcast in the ocean and hoping somebody will find it. It's not going to happen. There's not a good distribution network with podcasts. And that's why it's like a book. If you write a book, great, you wrote a book, but no one's going to find it unless you do the legwork. So think of the marketing like marketing a book. You have to do the hard work to get it out there. And the last thing that I'll share that I believe that I should do differently, and anyone, that it wants to make their show successful, is make sure, and this is why you and I are talking, I mean, go on as many podcasts as you can that are in your niche. This is a great example, me being on your show, would love to have you on my show. And so it's just like, now I'm getting exposure to your audience, you get exposure to my audience, and it helps to cross-pollinate. And I think that's a big thing that I make sure I'm doing now, is being on more shows, because podcast listeners listen to other podcasts. So I just want to be on as many podcasts as I can, especially with ones that are within my industry, my niche.